Okay. Hi, everyone. It's 8 a.m. and I would like to call the January 25th Whatcom County Public Utility District Commission regular meeting to order. The first item on our agenda today is the Pledge of Allegiance. And today, Steve Jilk will be doing the pledge.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry about that. I couldn't find my PowerPoint.
We got it.
Thank you so much, Steve. The next item is the approval of the agenda. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda?
I have one.
Okay.
I would like to postpone the item 6B, resolution number 812 on public discourse to our next meeting. I've had some dialogue with staff on this, but didn't communicate directly with commissioners. But there's still some work I feel like I need to do as far as my comments on it, and I'd rather put that off to the next meeting.
So you know, commissioners, I will not be in attendance at the next meeting. Peter Rafato will be. So if that matters when you want to have this discussed, just giving you that information.
Okay. Mike?
I'm okay with tabling it if that's what, I'm okay with it to table it.
Okay.
And if you want
well,
me present, it would be the 22nd.
Okay. I'm fine with that too. So we need to make a motion then to amend the agenda. So I will entertain a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Okay, so I will make a motion to approve the adjusted agenda with deletion of item number 6B.
Second that.
There is a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 So just to be clear, not to be over formalistic, there was a motion to table on the floor.
Okay.
And it technically takes priority. I don't think we're all trying to be parliamentarians here at the moment, which I appreciate. But if you want to table that matter to a certain date, you need to act on the motion.
Oh, and John, does a motion to table need to be seconded?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So do we need
I'll
to,
withdraw my motion to table if that's okay, since we approved the agenda without it.
Well, I think it does need to be seconded. It has not been seconded, so you can withdraw your motion.
Yeah, I'll just withdraw the motion. Then. So we
Okay.
struck it, but I'm sorry, Commissioner Grant. I apologize.
I did second that motion. So we had a motion with a second. We voted on it, the three of us.
No, the motion that was voted on was to amend the agenda. Commissioner Desmani
Not
first
to
made a
table.
motion to table.
okay.
So I say trying not to be overly parliamentarian here, but that had priority. He withdrew the motion. It did not have a second. The motion to table did not have a second. So he withdrew the motion. So the motion to amend the agenda exists. And now I guess on that resolution, draft resolution 812, the chair can put it back on the agenda when the chair decides.
Okay. So we can move on then to okay.
Yes.
All right. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from the regular meeting of January 11th, 2022, and the approval of claims for January 25th, 2022.
I'll make a motion. We approve the consent agenda as it reads.
I will second.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the approval of resolution number 814. And this resolution is to honor and recognize the many ways that General Manager Steve Jilk has contributed to this organization. And just for context, for those of you that might not know, today is Steve's last PUD commission meeting as the general manager. He will be staying on through June in a different capacity, serving the new general manager. But today we are honoring Steve, and Steve, we wish we could be honoring you in person, but we will be doing our best to express our gratitude to you virtually and hopefully not embarrass you too much. We will be starting with a presentation that takes us back to the year 2006. And we will be highlighting some of Steve's key chapters with the PUD. And after that, we will be opening the floor to those that wish to share any words about their work with Steve over the years. And then we'll be ending by reading the resolution. And then, please just note for everyone that we will be having a normal public comment period after this kind of special resolution. But everyone that would like to share something is welcome to during this time where we're honoring Steve. So that's, Atul.
Commissioner Grant, Executive Sidhu is both put a Q&A and then also has just texted me and is trying to figure out how to join.
So I don't know, Executive Sidhu, if you are really pressed for time, but what we're going to do is do a short presentation, and then when you raise your hand, the commission clerk, Ann Grimm, will give you permission to speak and will transfer you to a panelist so you can make your comments. So hopefully you have a few more minutes so we can get started with this presentation and then hear from folks. Does that work? I think, so why don't we enjoy this pretty short presentation?
He just said, okay.
Okay, I didn't see that. Thank you for keeping me in the loop. Let's enjoy the presentation prepared by Ann. Thank you, Ann, for doing this.
Hey, hey, and you have to switch screens. We can see your control panel. Best way to do it is stop sharing and share again.
I can't. Oh, okay. Everyone just hang tight and we'll get this figured out.
I started playing some game show music for background.
Okay. Get the party started. Mike and Anne, do you think we should start with some words from folks in the audience and then end with this? Oh, we can't hear you either.
There we go.
Okay, here we go.
Christine,
Yes.
I just called her and I suggested that maybe let people speak until they get that figured out.
Okay. I'm not, and you'll have to help get folks transferred to being panelists. So I know that Sat Paul would like to speak, and I know we've got a few other people on that for sure want to speak. So
And
can you help with that, Ian? I don't know if she can hear us.
Ann,
Looks like Seth Paul's been admitted as a panelist.
Great. Let's see. Sat Paul, can you speak? Are you able to turn your video on?
and
I don't know if she can hear us. Hey, Anne, can you hear us?
Ann, she says they're getting there.
Okay.
Seth Paul needs to unmute himself. We don't have that control.
And it looks like he may be entered twice on two different accounts.
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes, I did try on my cell phone also, so I'll cancel my computer. Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, because I didn't know how I could respond back or anything, but thank you for this opportunity to do that. And Steve, thank you very much. I have known you for a while, and but your service to our community goes long ways. This is not only at PUD. You served with the city of Linden and the Linden School District, and many other county projects, starting with past two county executives. So I just want to thank you publicly and personally. and as a county executive for your contribution to this community. There are many things. I can't list each one of these, but I think the biggest help I received from you was that when I got elected, or before I got elected, the conversations we had about the WIRA 1 water issues and how to proceed with that, as well as during my first month or so as the transition team, your help has been very invaluable. Because I've been able to learn a lot more about the history of water issues and the role of PUD. And that has come very handy for me to start this initiative and discussions with the tribes as well as with the farming community. So that has been very, very valuable, and I am very grateful for your help. Now, at the same time, like we talked a couple of weeks ago over lunch, that I still would need help and your wisdom over time as these water issues go on, and how PUD as organization can be helpful over time. So I thank you, and thank you for the commission to allow me to have these words. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Satpal.
Thanks so much, Satpal. Let's keep going with some comments. I know there's a few other folks on that want to speak. If you want to raise your hand, we can transfer you to a panelist so you can speak. Looks like we've got Jeff McClure, Paul Kenner, and TJP all raising their hands. Anne, can you help?
TJP is already on.
Yes.
Okay.
Needs to unmute.
There you go.
Okay.
Well, good morning, commissioners. My name's Tom Perry. I'm with Murray Smith. Murray Smith was retained by the PUD in 2006 as their district engineer. And I had the pleasure of leading that assignment for 9 years. And during those 9 years, got to know Steve very well, had many trips up to Ferndale, and spent a lot of time with Steve and staff. And I was hugely impressed, Steve and his vision of the PUD and how he really transformed that utility into a professional and sustainable organization. And so I had the pleasure of having a small part in that, in the work we did, but truly enjoyed that opportunity. And it's one of the highlights of my career. So Steve, thank you for that. Congratulations, and enjoy the next steps.
Thank you very much, Tom. Good hearing from you.
Thanks, Tom. Jeff McClure. You're muted, Jeff.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good morning, everybody. First off, I want to thank Christine for contacting me about a week ago for this opportunity, because it gave me a lot of time to try and think of some nice things to say about Steve. No, really. I can't see your face, Steve. I hope you're not taking me seriously. But I originally met Steve back in the 90s when he was the city manager back in Linden, and we were engaged to think through the design of a civic campus in downtown Linden. And I was immediately impressed with Steve. He had what I would call a visionary pragmatism about him. And in that, I mean, he had a vision for where he thought that the community should go, specifically with this project and what it could mean for the downtown. But he also had a practicality about how to achieve that mission, what were its limits and where were the opportunities. And I think that sort of skill set can only come from growing up on a farm in the Midwest, where you figure out how you need to get things done and where you're going. It was a very enjoyable experience, and now we can see the fruits of it if you've been in downtown Linden with the construction of the library and the downtown city hall. After that, I rubbed elbows with Steve a couple of times when he was the economic development director at the Port of Bellingham. But and I might say that economic development has always woven through, my time in working with Steve in how the public sector can create well-paid private jobs. And it's something that he's certainly carried through in his work at the PUD. But I probably worked most closely and got to know Steve best during my time as a commissioner. I arrived on the scene about 2 years after Steve came. He came in 2006. I came in 2008. And for the next 12 years, I had the great pleasure of working right alongside him as I watched him transform the PUD into what it is today, a well-run, highly respected organization that consistently and methodically used its resources and relationships to upgrade facilities. But not only to upgrade that sort of infrastructure, but also to take on some significant community projects to benefit the community and to benefit the environment. But I think the thing I appreciated most about Steve is his talent in building what I would call the human infrastructure. He has really created a great team at the PUD. He's very good at recognizing potential in others, helping them to develop that potential, and creating a work environment that really encourages people to respect one another and bring out the best in each other. So consequently, I'm really excited to see where the PUD will go from here. This is a new chapter, but it's got such a strong foundation owing to Steve and the team there that it's really in a terrific position to take on the challenges that are ahead. So I am very thankful, Steve, for the opportunity to work with you, often meeting weekly over cups of coffee, which I really enjoyed. I appreciate your intelligence, your insightfulness, your commitment to this community, and above all, your humility. You are truly what I see as a servant leader. This community has been blessed to have your commitment to it over the years. I know it's not going to end here, but I'm excited for you to enter this new chapter. And for as long as we talked about the importance of the transition of leadership at the PUD, now it is occurring, and you have had a wonderful part at putting this organization in a very strong position to go forward. So congratulations, and we'll connect over a cup of coffee sometime soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jeff. Gonna miss our weekly coffee cups. We'll get together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Looks like Paul Kenner is on the line. Okay, Paul, go ahead and unmute yourself. Paul, you're muted.
There you go.
Okay, how about now?
You got it.
You got it?
Yes.
Well, hi, guys. It's sure great to see all of you guys. And Steve, I just a great big congratulations from me. It seems like yesterday we were sitting around the table, the three commissioners, and wondering who we're going to get to replace Tom Anderson. And I thought of you, Steve, because of my respect when you were city administrator in Linden. I knew you had a pretty good situation at the port. And I told the guys, I said, hey, we got to try to get him. We probably can't get him, but we got to try. And sure enough, you accepted. And it's been a great ride. And I'm so glad that we were able to attract you as the general manager. I want to honestly tell you that I think you're the best general manager the PUD has ever had. And there's been 5 or 6, I suppose. What I really appreciated about you was how you tackled the water issues immediately upon joining the PUD. That became obviously the issue for the last 15 years. And I would say you and your staff are probably the best source of information and skill level of any entity in Whatcom County. So thank you for that great skill you've had. I know your staff's going to miss you, Steve. They think the world of you. Every commissioner that's ever worked with you, I think thinks the world of you. And I wish you the best going forward and spend more time with your grandkids and maybe come down to sunny Southern California where I'm playing golf and we'll have a round.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And thank you for making that call to me that day and seeking my interest in joining you out here at the PUD. We would have never gotten here without you. So,
well, it's been a good ride, and I know there's probably great things in the future for the PUD.
well, thank you again. Good hearing from you, pal.
We have one person who's actually live here at the PUD who would like to say a few words.
Hello there. Pat Pollock here.
Hey, Pat.
Congratulations.
Thank
And everybody else in on the call. I didn't realize I needed to be in on Zoom. I was just so used to coming to the PUD all these years that and have all the friendly faces here to join and have conversation with. I can't speak for BP anymore because I no longer work there and I retired myself, as you know, but I got to say that, I started off working with Tom Anderson back in the Intalco days when I was at Intalco, and then transitioned to Steve, and things just got incredibly, there was so much work to do with contracts and everything that we had to accomplish back in those days. And I'm sure many of you commissioners remember all of our work through those days with Intalco, and then the transition with BP, and the work we did with Birch Bay Water and Sewer District, trying to get all of the water rights and everything straightened out. And Steve, your leadership through all that and helping me understand what to bring to the leadership of those organizations at Intalco and BP Cherry Point, 2 of obviously the biggest customers that are out there, was insightful, helpful. It got us through a transition timeframe that got hopefully PUD in a better place as well. We were able to work operational issues. We were able to work how we set up water use, how we could limit our water use and make sure that the waters were used appropriately and environmentally sensitive ways. All those things were because of you, Steve. Every bit of it was. I wouldn't have known where to start without your help. It was certainly imperative to those customers that are the industrial base of Whatcom County, and the ability for them to transition themselves also then into being environmental stewards, you might say, of the water, the limited supply we have here in Whatcom County, and clarifying that. And then all of the things that we worked on otherwise as well. Steve, you were instrumental in all of it, and your help, I just can't express how thankful I am And those organizations, if they understood everything that you did for them, they would be super thankful as well. It was quite an effort that we had to go through in those years. So thank you, Steve. Congratulations. Welcome to the club. And hopefully I get to join in on those coffees once in a while. That would be awesome. You have a great staff here at the PUD that have been developed. I can't tell you how thankful I am for all of them as well. So congratulations. I'll leave it at that, and look forward to the future. Take care, so.
Thank you, Pat. Appreciate it. And one of the things that I read a long time ago about leading an organization is you figure out where everybody needs to go and where they're going, and then you get out in front and say, let's go. And with this staff that we have here at the PUD that we've developed over the years, it just makes my job so much easier because we have a tremendous staff here. So thanks again, Pat.
We have a couple of letters of comment that were sent in. I'd like to read. This one is from Jack Laus, former Linden Mayor and County Executive. He says, Steve, I've had the pleasure of being involved with you in city and county government for 2+ decades. Your sharp mind and savvy wit has served you well dealing with those of us afflicted with elected office. Fortunately for us, your intelligence, passion, and dedication to your craft has added value to the quality of life we all enjoy as residents of Whatcom County. Whether that be in your role in Linden at the port or GM of the PUD, you have served honorably and with distinction. Job well done. I wish you well as you transition into the next phase of your life. You are deserving of a time to reflect and a time to enjoy the fruits of your labor. God bless. The next one is from Jim Bucknell. He was not able to attend today. Jim has had the pleasure of knowing and worked with Steve and for Steve Jilk. My first introduction to Steve was when he was city administrator in Linden and I worked in Ecology's water resources program. In fact, Steve has introduced me to people by noting that I'm the guy that first informed Linden their water rights weren't as big as they thought they were. Many discussions followed, but Steve was and is always friendly and professional and a terrific representative for whatever organization he represents. As years went by and Steve became manager at the PUD, our paths crossed again when RH2 Engineering was retained by the PUD to work on a number of water-related issues of great importance to Whatcom County. In many cases, it was Steve that provided the impetus for the PUD to get involved in and often take the lead in trying to resolve problems, even though there was no requirement for the PUD to do so. Steve and the PUD Commission have shown great initiative in working on big issues to solve the county's water problems, and Steve should be commended for his persistence and unflagging efforts. I would like to add, I think every organization that has had the good fortune to employ Steve has been made better by having done so, and that's a good measure of any career. On a personal note, through it all, Steve and I have become friends, and I hope that his retirement will include time for staying in touch with the guy that gave him the bad news about water rights. Congratulations, Steve, on a very successful career and a well-earned retirement. And I have one more from the AG Water Board and Henry Bierlink, addressed to the Board of Directors. We are thankful for the continued service your board and specifically Steve Jilk has provided the Whatcom Farm community. Steve has served as an important resource for the AG Water Board and many of our watershed improvement districts over the past years. Steve, we sincerely hope that you will continue to provide these kinds of services to natural resource managers throughout our county and region in your new consulting role. We have significant challenges ahead of us, and it will require a collection of talents and commitments like those you have demonstrated to help our county and our farmers manage these resources effectively. The future of Whatcom AG is brighter because of your work. Congratulations.
Don't know what to say. I appreciate all those comments. And again, the result of our success here, and I say our success at the PUD over the last 16 years is really due to the staff that we've been able to retain and bring on and retain, keep. It just makes everything so much easier when you have people that you can trust, that you're not worried about them being out in the community. I've never been, since about 2007, when we did make some changes here, I've never been failed. No one has ever failed me in that regard. And that's really what makes my success, our success, so much easier and greater. So appreciate all those comments.
Okay, I think Mike is going to run that video real quick.
Yep, here we go. Let's hope for the best.
Fingers crossed. Thank you, Anne and Mike. That was wonderful. I just want to make sure that everyone got to speak that wanted to. I think there are probably a few more people that want to say some words before we move on to the next part of our agenda.
Yeah, I'd like to just make a statement that I really appreciated all the comments from all the folks and customers and commissioners. And Steve, you have a wonderful and unique personality, and it's been so ideal for an infrastructure organization like ours, where you're so focused on service, so understanding of the process to get things done, and recognizing that, you know, maybe you don't necessarily get acknowledged for it. So this is a weird moment for you, because all of a sudden we're acknowledging you for all the things you really weren't looking for acknowledgement for. So, that's that quiet and dedicated effort that these, in particular, the three longstanding commissioners help support. And I'd like to also recognize them, Mike, Paul, and Jeff, because I think that a big part of what you're able to accomplish is because of the steadfast support you received. And it's an excellent role model for what today's current commission can look at in terms of the kind of support and dedicated support for our new general manager that I think we're all going to give, including you, Steve, too. And so it's a great passing of the baton. I couldn't feel more grateful for being involved in an organization that's doing this so gracefully. And so I just wanted to express my thoughts about that. I hope I get to see you too. You're going to have to drink a lot of coffee, Steve. Maybe we need to incorporate some tea or something like that. So anyway, I look forward to also seeing you on the other side of this and maintaining our friendship and appreciate all that you've done for us.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Atul. I appreciate those comments.
May I read the resolution?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
Mike, do you have anything to say? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Christine. Oh, so much has been said, Steve, already by so many people that all I can really do is add to that. But it was interesting to look back at those pictures and see them. You look as young as ever, and I'm balder than ever now too. So I don't know what happened, how you got but you're looking great. So I want to thank you, because there's one thing I really appreciate about you is you listened to the commissioners, you hired the right staff, you listened to the community. You had to make hard decisions with so many people in the community. There's times that you just had to take a stand, and you always did that representing all of us, not just the PUD, but the community, when individuals would take a stand. I appreciate that leadership, because you're definitely one who led by example. You just didn't point. And so I appreciate that. I also appreciate so much that instead of following other paths, in a lot of areas, paths weren't even created when it came to some of the areas that we dealt in the water especially. But you created paths for us. You cleared them for us, and people are following them to this day in water issues. And it's because of your work and the staffs, and without your leadership, we wouldn't be where we are dealing with water issues. I know I pushed a lot on water, but where would we be without water? You know, how long would we last without water? And so I do appreciate all that. I'm happy to know that in my heart, I'm not losing you, as you're just moving over. So I'm really appreciative of that. I wish I could say that your work would be easier from general manager into the position you're moving, but I'm afraid it's not, because water issues are big issues. So I am very pleased that you will be staying working with us in water issues where, you know, we could really use your help in the things that we'll be dealing with in the future. And the last thing I'd like to say is, you know, you and I have sat and talked many times about our wives, and I really appreciate you and Jeannie and all you do and your prayers and everything for Kathy and her cancer and stuff. And so she's been a big part of your life, and I really appreciate her, and I wish the two of you the very best. So thank you to both of you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. And we've been together now 16 plus years. So, and families, I was going to say this about one of the, or a couple of the slides that Ann had in that presentation is with my wife. You know, I've been in public service now since 1978 when I first joined the city of La Crescent, Minnesota as city administrator. And there's, I can honestly say this, and I've said it before, but I would not have been successful in any of the roles that I've worked in, positions I've held since 1978 without my wife. And she's given a lot. And so this is even though it's late in the game, it's going to be time for me to spend some more time with her. So I sincerely mean that.
I found one more letter of comment.
Go for it.
This is from Jim Darling.
Oh.
Steve, wish you the best in this new chapter of your life. I've always valued our friendship, your leadership, and how much you love the community you have served for so many years. There is no doubt the PUD, the port, and the city of Linden are in better shape today because of your dedication. Have some fun. You deserve it. Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
I have a quick comment I want to make before we do the resolution, but I just want to check and make sure there's, John, do you want to? Okay.
I could, yes. I just, it's a privilege as council to work with you, Steve. It's your echo what everyone has said. I'd add, you're the consummate professional. I don't think I've heard you ever say an ill word about anyone. And you define professionalism to me. And one of the opportunities lawyers have over time when they work with someone for as many years, and you and I go back to my days representing the Downtown Merchants Association in Linden and some of those battles, and but as you develop a friendship over time. And I know Sherry and I surely enjoy our dinners with you and Jeannie and our friendship, and I look forward to that continuing. So thank you for all your service to our community.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Are there any other hands raised out there? Just want to check. I think good. Yeah, well, I want to just make a quick comment, Steve, agree with everything that's been said already. And I just wanted to say how grateful I am that we've had this year working together, and I've learned so much from you. And I'm glad for kind of all the history that you've been able to share with me about this institution. So, you're loyal, you're kind, you're thoughtful, and you're calm. And, the people that you work with know that you care about them, and it is clear how much they care about you. So just thank you for your leadership, your service to our community, and your dedication to this organization. Congratulations.
Thank you, Christine.
So with that, Ann, would you like to read the resolution and then we can approve it?
I would be honored to, and I'll just say a quick word. I have known Steve and worked with him pretty much for the last 20 years, and couldn't have asked for a better boss and a better friend. So here we go. Resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Public Utility District Number 1 of Whatcom County, honoring Stephen Jilk on his retirement after 16 years of service as general manager. Whereas Steve Jilk has served as general manager of Public Utility District since March 1st, 2006. And whereas the commission and the district staff are indebted to Mr. Jilk for his able public service, having served the district faithfully with the best interests of the district always foremost in his deliberations and official actions, and having given generously of his time and talents. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Board of Commissioners of Public Utility District Number 1 of Whatcom County do hereby express their sincere appreciation and the appreciation of the people of Whatcom County for Mr. Julk's outstanding service to the district. Adopted by the Board of Commissioners of Public Utility District Number 1 of Whatcom County at a regular meeting thereof held this 25th day of January 2022. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Ann. Should we go ahead and entertain a motion to formally approve the resolution?
I would like to make that motion to accept resolution 8112.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 The motion carries. Thank you so much. Steve?
I'm not going to be too lengthy here. I just want to thank everyone. It has been quite a ride, but it's been an easy ride when we have the staff and the commissioners that we've had over the years. It really has. And there have been some challenging times, as we all know. We're still going through them. But when you have a wife and a family that supports you, and you have commissioners that we may disagree on some things, but we have always worked as a team. And I can honestly say that. And that just makes what seems to be success by one or two individuals in an organization, it just means the organization succeeds. And I believe that we have really become a better organization over the last 16 plus years. So with that, that's all I'm going to say. And again, I appreciate it. I'm hopefully going to be around for a while, and I'm here to serve. So thank you. Thanks again.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you to everyone that joined today to help us in honoring Steve and just this transition in general for the whole organization. It really means a lot. So we are going to move on with our agenda here. And the next item on our agenda is public comment. So Anne, can you facilitate if there's any public comment coming in?
Don't see any hands raised for public comment.
Okay, great. Then we will close public comment. And now we will move on to old business. And the first item under old business is the broadband program update, which I believe is going to be Andrew.
There he is. Bright and smiley face this morning.
Yes, good morning. And gosh, I have to follow a legend. So it's challenging for me. I think we should just go straight to the party. So I'll be brief, but just again, reiterating the fact just how much I appreciate being here and going on 2 months on the job. Thanks for having me here, Steve. And I will miss you. So with that, I'll just dive right in. On the 13th, we attended the WPUDA Telecom Committee. I know some of the other commissioners were there, so I won't dive too much into the detail in case you are planning to do that in your report. But some of the big takeaways I got from that, some of the bills, specifically Senate Bill 5715, which is the modifying the definition of broadband service to 100 down 20 in terms of the speeds, which I think is really exciting. And both the port and the PUD have said that they support that direction, which is exciting. The other one is the Senate Bill 5580 and the House Bill, which is 1673, and that's changes to the Public Works Board broadband grant loan program. And originally, the port and the PUD both supported this bill, but after some modifications to the bill language, I know the PUDs, the WPUDA has decided to oppose those changes. My understanding is the port's position has stayed the same, which is they are still supportive. So looking at how we can fill that gap there between Whatcom PUD and the Port of Bellingham as we move through this policy direction. And we can talk about more as we progress through time here in this short legislative session. But second, big thing on my mind is the port did receive some funding for their project through the state Washington broadband office. So I'd like to share my screen if I may, just to give a quick visual. I think I can do here. Can everyone see this okay?
Yes.
Okay, so on the screen share, this yellow part is kind of challenging to see. Apologize for that. So if we just kind of back up, the first round of funding is from CURB, which is these yellow pieces here. And the second funding from CURB is this North Linden area here. And then what the port just received is this area over here from the state broadband office funding. So in total, if we added all of these together, we're at a little more than 2,200 passes, which is really, really exciting. So I wanted to put this on a map so we could just visualize this here. And then I remember at the last committee, Commissioner Deshmain, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, said it might be really interesting or nice to have a map of some anchor institutions in the county. So I thought I'd throw these on here while we're looking at the funded areas as well. And this will continue to grow as we continue our outreach with some other stakeholders and partners, like the county might have some facilities they'd like on here, or just so that we're aware that might need better broadband connectivity. So this map will continue to grow. But I think the biggest thing is to celebrate is that we just got more funding. If we added all the funding up together, we're at about $10 million in funding between the two CURB and now the state broadband office and the matching dollars from the county. So all of a sudden we have a lot of grant dollars and a lot of work ahead of us. So where my mind is now is executing on these really well, because if we go back for more funding at any time, we're going to want to show that we have the competence to deliver on our promise and build these in a timely fashion. So that's my goal, is to support the port's build out of these projects in a timely fashion. Let's see what else. I think that's my quick report. We'll be meeting with PSC tomorrow to discuss some poll data, which is really exciting. It will save lots and lots of time in the preliminary design if we have access to data, which is just the physical location of poles on a map, because then we can identify aerial and then where, if there aren't any poles, where the underground builds could be. And it just really helps with planning and so on and so forth. So I hope this map was helpful. A lot more of this to come, and I'll pass it over to any questions or back to Steve.
Andrew, would you? Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate it. I don't have anything specific. I don't know. Christine may have a few comments to add, but I don't have anything other than a big thank you to Andrew for all the work that he's been doing and working with the port and really diving in and getting a much better picture of what's going on, not so much at the port, but just generally speaking across the county. So we're really glad to have you here, Andrew.
Any questions from Commissioner Murphy, Commissioner Deshmani? Yeah. Mike, why don't you go first?
Thank you, Christine. Yeah, I would actually, I'd like to start with both of you all, too, and Christine and the port and Steve and staff and Andrew. Seeing this map, actually able to visualize seeing something is an incredible joy to me. And it's something that, as a commissioner, I can now go out in the community and say, I have seen with my own eyes. And then to find out the funding we have, the 10 million, it's just incredible. So something that, you know, it was a vision many years ago. It kind of disappeared and left us for a while. It is back, and I'm really proud of everyone for all they've done to make it possible to be where we're at right now. So thank you to all of you. Thank you.
Commissioner Deshmani.
Well, I wholeheartedly echo Commissioner Murphy's. And by the way, if we can get a copy of that chart, it'll help me relieve some of the heat that I'm experiencing from people in the community. So thank you for that chart. That's great. The other thing I wanted to ask about is regarding the partners that we have on all of these. That the port has on all of these projects. Could you tell me about which telecoms are involved in the various three segments in each of those? Do you know that yet? In terms of providing last mile? And again, are we talking about actually building the fiber to the home or letting the last mile partner doing the fiber to the home? So are we just doing the pass by? Is a port? When I say we, I'm using the royal we, including the port. So are we just doing the pass by and the last mile provider, the telecom will provide the connection to the house?
Yeah, great question. And one, yep, we'll send the map out to all the commissioners. No problem. And second, the internet service provider who has been working with the Port of Bellingham on this effort is Pogo Zone. So that map that we showed with the curb funding, the 2 curb fundings, and the state broadband office, that will all be a public-private partnership with Pogo Zone. And the idea is that it is all fiber infrastructure to the premise. So those, if you look at the commitment made in the application, it's fiber to the premise, which is really exciting. And it's a PON passive optic network configuration, which we don't, we can get into the technicalities, but Pogo Zone does that very well, and they have experience doing that type of configuration in other communities as well. So I think they are a great partner, like any provider. So just to know that is, and it is open access in the sense that other providers will have the ability to access the network, is what they committed in the application. So we'll look forward to that for competition.
And it'll be gigabytes service that all those folks will have?
They did, and they grant gigabit services, yes.
Wow. See, I want to go move there.
Well, what we'll start seeing is these rural areas having better access than some of the urban areas, which is kind of exciting, or really exciting.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
I don't have that much to add other than just, it's been a pleasure working with Andrew. There's a lot of details to sort out and a lot of complexity, and there's still more to work through. So it's wonderful when we can roll it up and look at this, but it takes a lot of on a day-to-day basis. So just echoing the gratitude for having you on board, Andrew, and for kind of pushing through on really digging into the details to make sure that we're creating a program that's going to offer the most benefits to the public. And it's clear how much, how focused you are on that. So really learning a lot from you. I don't think I have anything else to add. And if we don't have any other questions, then I'd love to move on to our next item on the agenda. Okay, it doesn't sound like we have any other questions from other commissioners. So thank you, Andrew, for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Okay, so we're moving on to item 6C under old business, which is the drinking water system plan update. And it looks like that's Dave Olson. Hello there, Dave. Take it away.
Great. Well, this will be really short. I get to just quickly say thanks to Steve for your willingness to listen to crazy, sometimes rambling ideas. Your constant challenge to go figure it out, and then your encouragement to go get it done. And I'd like to substitute another word in there, but not in a public forum. I truly look forward to re-engaging in our morning breakfast with mentor and friend meetings. Those were highlights of my week or my month. And then on the subject, it's been an honor to work with you on the PUD drinking water system plan. And as many of you heard, his willingness to go out and find people that sometimes have crazy ideas, but that are giving them the opportunity to just go work on something and encourage them to get that done. So that's just his character throughout. So just sincere thanks, Steve. And I look forward to when you finally have time to go back and work on water stuff, looking forward to hopefully engaging in that. And so my update is really short. I was really hoping to have that letter of the water system plan approval here for this meeting, even though it wouldn't have been able to be adopted. I truly believe it's that close. We could see it any day. I believe the final elements have been worked out, and we're just waiting for the formalities of the notice to come, unless, you know, something new has come across the path here. So I'm just anticipating in the next meeting or so that you will have your official adoption of the drinking water comprehensive drinking water system plan for you to adopt, and that should provide a foundation for you as you're going forward. And I really appreciate some of the things I don't think the commissioners see on the background related to your drinking water system plan is the PUD's ongoing culture of being willing to facilitate. And so you may not realize it, but one of your customers, PSC Point Whitehorn, they were struggling with how to deal with water, and the PUD staff and Steve and Brian and Dwayne, they stepped up and says, let's go figure this out. How can we help? And he's done that with them. He's done that with connections with Phillips 66 that Steve doesn't even really aware of, how they got into a staffing challenge and they were trying to bridge some of these things with their operators. And your consulting that you've set up where you would provide technical support, somehow or another, they came back to the PUD and we were able to help them over a staff transition where they didn't know what to do with water operators. And there are others out there, the list goes on, but those are just with your regular industrial customers. They've been able to come back to you to have you help and assist and bridge some of the challenges. So thank you, Steve, and thanks for PUD for allowing me to work on this important part of the community. So that's really all I have to do is an update. I'm really looking forward to hopefully at the next meeting that we have that letter so you guys can complete your final resolution on the adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. I just would like to say, you know, we started working on a water system plan update several years ago. And then Tom Mortimer and myself had a couple of meetings with Department of Ecology and Department of Health to talk about that update. And there was an agreement, it was informal, but across the table from both of those organizations, it was agreed that we could forestall, you know, the work on the water system plan until things settle down, if you would, on the municipal water law. And so that's why we're back at it. At the time that I decided to pick this up again, I was searching for someone like Dave that understood our system, that worked with water system plans for some of the smaller water systems around the county that could take this on, and then bring on Wilson Engineering to complete the engineering and put the stamp of engineering on the plan. And we've been quite successful. It was just last week that, I think it was just early last week that we got a question from Department of Health on a list of customers out at Grandview, indicating that they wanted this list of current customers so they could monitor the build out of the Grandview system. But one of the last comments that individual from the Department of Health gave was that they were preparing the letter of approval. So to me, I think it's just a matter of time here in the next few days to get that letter, and we'll be on. So Dave, thank you for all you've done, and on with Wilson Engineering also for, it's been a challenge, but it's been an easy ride in some ways. So
thanks, Steve. I appreciate the trust that you guys placed in me and the freedom you gave me to work on your behalf. So thank you.
Commissioner Deshmani, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, question. This is not the same topic, slightly related. There is a bill about the drought plans, which is requiring a resiliency element be added to drought response plans. And I just wanted to make sure that we were fully aware of that. And I mean, we did a drought response plans. We're a leader as a PUD as far as doing that. I've made sure to bring that up again at the water committee to make sure that they know we're a resource to them in that regard. But I just wanted to make sure that we're on board with that legislation and adding that resiliency component to the drought response plans.
Yeah. Yeah.
And does it make sense for us to update ours retroactively, or is that at the next iteration?
I don't think at this time we need to update it, but we do need to get back into working with the committee that we had put together in developing the plan. When we look at all the other elements of what the Watershed Management Board is working on right now, and then tie that with adjudication, I think it's time that we need to get back into that committee work. So,
okay, I just wanted to bring it up. That's all I had.
Okay, if everyone's okay, moving on to the next item. I know Jim Darling has a time constraint, so I want to make sure we get him on. Okay, great. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, it's strategic initiatives. And I've asked Jim Darling to join us today. And as we all know, Jim helped us prepare our strategic initiatives last year, starting at about this time, I believe, in preparation for putting together a position profile for the general manager search. And he is, still on contract with the PUD. And as we look to bringing on Chris Heimgartner, I thought it would be helpful to bring Jim in to have him share some ideas for how we might look at strategic initiatives for 2022. So with that, I will pass the mic over to Jim.
Well, thanks, Commissioner. And before we get started, hey, a big congratulations on two great hires. I had the pleasure of working with Andrew in his former life down south, and he's a great add to the team. And then certainly on Chris. I have not chatted with Chris yet, but I've looked at his resume and I think it's a good add. And then congrats to Steve, by the way, for the next chapter, which will be the fun chapter.
Well, this has been fun.
And then if I could ask, I put together, as the commissioner said, I'm on an on-call contract that Steve and I entered into at the end of last year. Haven't used any of it yet. And then Commissioner Grant and I had a conversation about some additional work for you. And so I've got about 4 or 5 slides. If I can get Ann to put those up on the screen.
Looks good. I can see it.
You can see that. So you did a great job last year in developing the initiatives in 2021 and laying the groundwork, as you all well know, for your selection. And I think that was really important to inform the selection process, but also more important, quite frankly, to inform the candidates that were coming in about what your expectations were. And I think at this point, it probably would be worthwhile to putting as Commissioner Grant said, a little bit more polish on those initiatives and refine them a bit going forward. So why would we do this? Next slide, Ann. Really, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You want to support the successful transition to new senior leadership at the PUD. I mean, that's clearly the #1 reason. And in doing that, provide additional clarity to the incoming general manager on the commission's priorities going forward. And that's the polish and refine piece. And then finally, I've been in Chris's shoes before, and Steve has as well. And it will take him some time to get grounded. And then the next big opportunity he will have with the commission to impact the future is the development of the budget for 2023. And so I think that between now, it's a great timing, by the way, between now and when you start your budget process mid-year or so, a little bit after that, is a great time to get more focused on the strategic plan, strategic priorities, so then you can translate that into the budget document itself. So that's essentially why we're doing it. And the biggest reason to make everybody successful going forward. So next slide, Ann. So I put together 4 tasks, and I have a draft scope of work that would augment the current on-call contract I have with you. And task 1 is to refine and polish those 2021 strategic initiatives. And that includes consulting with the commission and providing additional practical clarity. And I can't overemphasize the practical clarity on those out of fairness to Chris and what's going to be realistic to get done. So I think that would be a great effort to go through. And then develop really thoughtful expectations on the progress this year toward your commission priorities. And I think we can get that done in the first 30 days, start immediately after Chris starts next week. And that process would be a series of interviews remotely with both the commission to start with, and then moving on to actually working closely with Chris and senior staff and getting that wrapped up in about a 30-day period. And I think as we look at those, my thought was, and this is, of course, commission, I'm proposing all of this and need your feedback, is to look at things that need to be addressed immediately. Immediate's like 90 days, you know, that kind of time frame. Things that would be critical to do before the preparation of the budget process for next fiscal year. And then finally, things you really want to get that are high priorities to get done in 2022 by the end of the year. So it's kind of in those 3 buckets that I see putting more clarity on the initiatives in a sense of timing for those. Would you like me to go through all of them and then we can do questions? Does that make sense?
I think continuing, if
Okay.
commissioners, if you have a question, don't hesitate to chime in. But yeah, it doesn't look like anyone's raising their hand, Jim.
Yeah,
So
I'll wait till the end.
okay, yeah, great.
Okay, yeah. And then task 2 is to develop some realistic, the operative word is realistic performance metrics for each priority or initiative that comes out of task 1. And that would be developed with the commission in concert with Chris and the senior staff. And to start that as soon as we get task 1 done, I mean, start that immediately. And I see that as a series of remote interviews, and then perhaps a commission workshop or a set aside at one of your meetings where we could do it remotely and to land on what those metrics are. And I have to tell you, I spent my whole career both as a staff person on boards trying to develop metrics, and we all know they're hard to develop, and some are going to be quantifiable. Those are quite frankly, the easy ones, but the dangerous ones. And then there's going to be ones that are more subjective, and my experience has been they're typically the more meaningful ones. But do the best we can to develop metrics for those priorities that come out of task 1. And I don't think that would take very long to do, you know, weeks, month, maybe to get that done. Then if you can move on to the next slide. Task 3 would be before in advance of you're starting to work on the 2023 budget, to have a mid-year progress check-in. How are we doing on the initiatives? What have we learned? And use what we've learned and the progress that's been made to inform that 2023 budget. So you go into that budget process eyes wide open, and that's, as I mentioned earlier, that's the great opportunity for Chris really to have an impact on the organization in that planning for next year. So I can work with you on when that might be, when you want to get that done, but I'm thinking it's sometime this summer before you start your budget preparation for next year. And then finally, task 4 would be an update to the strategic plan 2025. And that, you know, that the timing on, it feels like it wants to happen yet this year in conjunction with the budget. And, you know, it was last updated in late 2017, early 2018, I believe. And there are some new initiatives that we informed that strategic thinking with last year in 2021. I think we need to incorporate those and update that strategic plan. And my recommendation always, because I think simply, is update the strategic plan 2025, and then in 2025, update it for another 5 years and sort of get on a cycle with that. I think it makes some sense to do that. So that's what I had in terms of presentation. I think most of this work can be done, with the exception of task 4, in the current on-call contract I have. And I'll have to work a little bit with you on that. But and doing the strategic plan in task 4, the big cost factor in doing those is how much community outside interaction you want to have in developing that plan. You have a really good sense. My takeaway is that you know where you're going, and so that may not be necessary, and you've got a good feel on the pulse of the community. But to the extent you wanted to do that, it adds process and things to it. So, but we can work, if you'd like, work on that scope a little bit later. So that's in summary. And like I said, I have a draft scope of work that I could provide to Steve for a few more days and the commission. What I would want to do, just to reassure the commission, if you decide to go forward with this, is for me to get connected with Chris very quickly early on. And, I've been in his seat before, and so I know what it feels like, and want to reassure him that I'm there to support the process, and he's in charge. So, not that the commission's not, but you're right. So, any questions on that?
So I have a few clarifications. So the current nature of your contract, Jim, is with the general manager. One of the things that this is a unique thing is that in a way, Jim, you're working for the commission.
Right.
I see it, no problem with maintaining the technicality of you being working for the GM, but it's also important to recognize that the reason that we reached out to is because this is something we want to contribute to as far as the direction of the PUD by working on the strategic plan. And I just recognize there's a little bit of a delicacy with that.
I totally appreciate that. I totally understand what you're saying, and the commission's driving the policy and the timing and the priorities. I want to make sure that Chris knows that I'm not driving it. It's the commission. I guess I should have been clearer about that. It's not Jim Darling driving it. It's the commission, and I'm the facilitator for that discussion. So yeah, makes total sense.
And I just add that both of you are right here that the general manager approved the contract, but Jim will work for the district, which is governed by the commission.
Exactly. Yep.
I also just wanted to mention that before we added this to the agenda, I reached out to Chris Heimgartner and had a discussion with him about this, just out of respect for him being engaged in this. And he, wasn't able to join today since he's in the middle of his move, but was very supportive of this. And, his quote that he gave me is one we've said before, just plans are useless, but planning is everything, and how important he felt like the planning process would be. So just wanted to say that Chris is in the loop about this. So
great, thank you.
Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Christine. Jim, thank you. Looking at this, and Christine, all two, you can jump in too, but Jim, because we're having a new general manager, in a lot of ways, we're a young commissioner board. I'd like to go back and revisit a little more depth in the strategic planning, because even reading our mission statement, I think we have changed since that last mission statement has been written. I think it needs to be updated. I think the three commissioners need to get together with you, Chris, and really discuss who are we and where are we going in the future. Need staff on this too, but I think we're seeing a turn, and I think we need to emphasize it in our mission statement, but also in our strategic planning. Christine, all too, I don't know how you feel about that. You know, we're a board, so it's up to you two too.
Commissioner, I agree with you completely. I think it's good. This is a big change you're making now too, and you've turned the ship very slowly but deliberately. And I think going back to visit those foundational issues of mission, values, and those types of things, I think are really important. And I would do that in the strategic plan update, and start from the mission is why you exist, why you're doing what you're doing that's the foundation of the whole building's built on. So I think that's really a good point.
So if I may, I forgot to address the kind of question you had to the commission, which is about public input. And I've not a concrete position on this, but some thoughts on it. The first thing is that it's necessary, I think, for the commission to say what we believe we should do first, and then perhaps take public input based on what we're proposing. So perhaps get to a place where we have a draft document, and then ask for input once we have a draft. And the reason I think that's important is because I mean, we commissioners are here to do something. I mean, we've been listening to the community. We have been doing a lot of homework, and we should turn that into a document. And once that document's prepared, then that's the opportunity to get public feedback on that document.
And that's a lot more manageable, Commissioner, too, right? I mean, and the public really wants to have something to react to, rather than just it's a white blank board, and because you represent them and they follow your leadership and they want to comment on it. So that's a lot more manageable, as I said, to do that. So
that's where I'm at. I just want to speak for myself, but this is a brand new subject you brought up. So I also recognizing that, I'm open. We should have the discussion.
Well, what I would do is over the next few weeks, assuming you want to go forward, is start to develop the timing and what that would look like to update that strategic plan from ground up, and kind of get a scope to work together, and timing and how that might work. And so we can figure that out.
Commissioners, any other questions for Jim at this time? No. So I have a question for Jim and for John. I guess we don't have a recommended action here. How should we proceed? I mean, it sounds like we're getting some general consensus around this that we're interested in moving forward, but John, can you advise on how we might move forward with this?
I think at this point, maybe Jim, refine his scope of work and bring that back to Chris and/or the commission. I think the contract allows Chris to approve the tasks and direct the tasks, and they could take direction from the commission. So a new contract, I don't believe, I'd have to go back and double check, but I don't believe a new contract per se is required. But just getting a consensus on the scope of work is probably worthwhile. Now, the timing of what Jim's tasks that he outlined, I think it would start sooner than later, probably within the next 2 weeks before the next commission meeting. So I think you might just give some kind of, it doesn't need to have a formal motion, but a direction to Jim to start the next 2 to 3 weeks. Then that task order can be issued by Steve now to start that work. I'm a little concerned, I'll just offer in as well, the schedule that was outlined, just because I recall Chris has some departures, I think 3 weeks in April for a 30th or 40th wedding anniversary, and then another pre-planned trip. So that timing, the 30-day and then the 90-day may have to extend because of Chris's pre-planned schedule.
We can figure that out too, John.
Right. But I think right now, then just give a direction for the next 2 to 4 weeks. Steve can give that approval under the current contract as a task. And then maybe the next meeting or the following meeting, a more general outline again from what the task might be to get the commission kind of consensus on that for the contract with, and then Chris can approve the tasks.
Steve?
I've had some discussion with Chris on his vacation, and I think that the April, I think that looking at Jim's proposal, looking at the timing in terms of you know, when he is going to be here or not here, Chris, that is, I think that it's very doable in terms of developing that schedule around especially the first two tasks. And then looking at budget preparation timing. I think it's all doable. I think we just need to get Jim and Chris together. That's all.
Okay.
What I will do then is I will send Steve the task 1, and then I'll separate from that task 2, 3, and 4 and send them to you. And then we can look at that at a later date. So we can get going on task 1. So that makes sense. Okay.
Okay. So no action needed from the commission since we already have a contract in place. Okay. Any further discussion on this topic? Okay, great. Well, Jim, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, congratulations on all fronts. So talk to you soon.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon, Jim.
Bye.
Okay, so moving on to new business. The next item on the agenda is resolution 813, cancellation of warrant. Is this you, Steve?
No, I think Tracy will take this one.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. This warrant was actually going to be the second payment to WEG Transformers on the refinery project, but then the refinery project was canceled, and so they recalculated the final payment, and the final payment ended up being more like 320,000. So this one's going to be canceled.
So we essentially just replaced this one and issued a new one.
Correct.
I'll make a motion to accept resolution 813.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Christine, you're muted.
Sorry. The next item on the agenda is approval of collective bargaining agreement with local Teamsters 321.
I'll take this, commissioners. It's my privilege to make a recommendation for your consideration and approval of the contract for our only union group with the PUD. We have 7 water operators, 6 regular operators, and 1 lead operator that are part of that union. And that last contract terminated at the end of December of 2021. We've been in discussion with the union for a couple of months now. We got behind because of vacation and COVID and bad weather. But they did vote last Monday, and they voted to approve the contract. It's essentially, as the memo indicated, what we are looking at is a 3-year contract. The first year, a 5% increase in salaries or wages. They are all on a union or all on an hourly basis. 4% or 90% of the Seattle-Tacoma CPIW for 2023 and 2024. And then we added for 2022 an additional 1% based upon the inflation rate that we are seeing coming into this year and what we expected to see through the end of this year yet. The when the discussions and negotiations first started, I can just say that without explaining the numbers, we were much, much higher. The request was much, much higher than what we settled on. The other thing that we've added is we pay into their retirement program. That's separate from the other employees. And we had a request to increase that payment 50 cents a year, 50 cents every year for 3 years. And we settled on one-time 50-cent increase. So we'll see a 50-cent increase in 2022, and that will stay the same for 2023 and 2024. And there were a couple other items, a small increase in clothing allowance, and a minor adjustment in their health insurance payment program. But what we try to do every time we enter into negotiations with the union, we try to balance what we see in terms of what other organizations are settling. And this year there's, I think that there's at least 3 organizations in the county that the Teamsters are working through their contract on. We also look at inflation. We also gather and does all this work, but gather information from other organizations, other PUDs around the state, and a couple of the other smaller cities in Whatcom County, and try to gauge what's happening. So saying all that, we're very pleased to have the union reach agreement on this, and our recommendation is that you approve the contract.
Go ahead, Commissioner Murphy.
Thank you, Christine. Say thanks, Steve, and thank you for all the work that's gone into getting a 3-year contract. That honestly, from my experience with contracts, for both sides to sit down and come up with a 3-year contract and us not hearing about it is a very good thing. So it seems to go very smooth is what I'm trying to say. So I thank you for that, the relationship. Can you touch on the clothing part? Sometimes that gets a little confusing to people. Like, are we buying them all full clothing or anything? It's not, it's items. So can you explain that publicly?
We in the contract, each employee in the union gets a certain dollar amount, a maximum dollar amount, and then they go ahead and purchase equipment, clothing that meets the requirements. We do not designate other than safety gear, such as safety shoes, certain types of exterior clothing, and they go ahead and purchase at locations that we have identified that they need to purchase that equipment, that clothing from. So it's not, get operator X 3 pairs of new blue jeans. It's jackets, it's hats, it's safety vests, it's that type of equipment that we require them to wear. We have not in the past, and this contract does not include clothing that gives them the identity of the PUD number 1. We have not required that. But typically an employee will probably use on an annual basis maybe half of their clothing allowance, because the clothing doesn't wear out. We also do provide them separately. We provide rain gear, so they don't have to use their clothing allowance to acquire the rain gear. But so I don't know if that answers your question or not. Now that's different. That's different than our electrical substation. Three members of that group. We just reached agreement with them this last year to have a similar clothing allowance, but that's almost all of that is based upon electrical safety clothing. arc flash gear and that type of thing. So.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Christine, O'Toole, do you have anything, or do you want me to make a motion?
I have
gotta-
one
Okay, go ahead.
question. Is the 3-year contract pretty typical with, other organizations that do these contracts? I'm just wondering if there's variation in how long the contracts are, or if this is about what it normally is.
It varies. I can tell you that I know a couple of smaller cities, say in Whatcom County, are on a couple of 2-year contracts.
Okay.
Last time we actually had a 4-year contract.
Okay.
And the union requested a 4-year contract.
Mhm.
I felt that it was more valuable to get a 3-year contract this year to give Chris step in and get some sense of where he's at on this, and yet give him at least a couple of years to do that. So and then the other is that with inflation going as it has been, it's just difficult to gauge, where to land, so to speak. So that's a long-winded answer, but it varies. I mean, I know sitting on the Linden School Board, the last 2 years, we approved 2 1-year contracts, for us, it's quite, compared to most other larger public organizations, we're pretty simple in terms of the needs and the requests. So, and I just really appreciate the union's approach to that. This is, I think, our 4th contract since I've been here, and I think it's always been a good negotiation process, because I think that everybody comes to the table and says, okay, how do we get here? How do we get this done? So.
Great. Thank you for answering that question.
Should I go ahead? I'll make a motion that we approve the bargaining unit contract for the years 2022 through 2024, asking the general manager to sign it.
I'll second that.
There is a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 The motion carries.
Thank you.
Steve. Okay, and that moves us on to our next item under new business, which is a legislative discussion. And I asked to put this on the agenda, so I will just, it's a short legislative session, and I know we've all been doing our best to track the different bills. I thought that because it's so short, it would be useful to check in right now on priorities that we might have as a commission related to any of the bills that we've learned about. I know last year we kind of wrote a letter in support specifically of the Public Broadband Act. So wanting to see if there's bills like that rise to that level where we want to really go above and beyond expressing our support or opposition. So I will open the floor to discussion.
So to address your question, I don't see anything popping up with that level of relevance or attraction to me yet. It's since a short session, and I think Tuesday is the cutoff.
The first, out of committee.
Not today, a week from today.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it's possible that we may not end up having, and if something does pop up, we may not have an opportunity to really act on it, but it's certainly possible between now and our next PUD meeting, something would pop up where we might want to take action, but I don't know. So far, I haven't seen anything that pops up in that regard. They're on bills, on telecom and energy. I've done some homework on them. There are different things that I'm attracted to, but nothing really sticks out.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yeah, thank you. Because it's so short, I can't believe it's as short as it is. Things are moving so fast that I appreciate Waputta having their legislative update. I sat in on that last time. Christine, I saw you there too. And it's the best place for me to understand what the bills are. And it also to keep us together, working with others like Waputta, others, and we have lobbyists and everything, to hear their input. So at the moment, I follow what George and his staff from Waputta and the lobbyists are saying. These are the critical ones that they're monitoring, and each week we'll learn more. So I'm just following Waputta right now myself.
Okay. Yeah, I have some thoughts, but Steve, I want to hear from you too on this before I go. Was there anything you wanted to bring up specifically?
There are three bills that I found most of interest. One is the telecom bill, the 1723. And then the Senate bill 1623, which has to do with rolling blackouts. And that's pretty, I mean, I don't know how to say it. It's pretty soft, if you would, but Waputta is strong support of that. Basically, that's just establishing a committee and looking at they're calling it now the Energy Resource Advisory Committee, I believe it is, and is supposed to meet and establish guidelines as to how to monitor the advancement of sufficient energy supplies in the state. And the last one was 5746, which is Senate Bill 5746, and that's also being supported by Waputta. This is the drought resilience bill, and I'm not suggesting that we take positions on them, but I do think that I mean I've been monitoring all three of those.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Steve. And I think for me, I am in alignment on Waputta's rating for those bills that you just brought up. I think what I wanted to bring up today was some areas where I'm disagreeing with where Waputta is coming out in terms of their bill rating. And I had a long discussion with George Kahn, the executive director of Waputta, about their opposition to electrification bills. And Waputta has a lot of concerns about electrification and resource adequacy, and concerns about rolling blackouts because we might electrify too fast. And I share those concerns. We need to make sure that our grid is prepared for electrification, and we need to be really thinking about resource adequacy. And so completely support the bill that Representative Fitzgibbon put forward to research this and to provide more funds to look into it. But we need to be doing these things in parallel. We cannot oppose every single electrification bill until that analysis is done, because we're going to miss our carbon targets. And honestly, I just think it's bad economics for electric utilities. We sell electricity. This is, a no-brainer in my opinion. And I also think that we need to be doing a lot more look into load shaping electrification. And, I brought this up a lot, and I know Commissioner Deshmani has looked into this as well. But, I was really disappointed that Waputta has failed to testify for any of the efficiency bills or demand response bills. They didn't show up for the appliance efficiency bill or even provide a rating for it. And so, I shared my concerns with George. I was also pretty disappointed that they shared with the whole membership that they were concerned about the 2 electrification bills. And then Nicholas testified as opposed to them. And they didn't really give a justification to members. The legislative center that they have on Waputa actually still listed the bills as concerned. And the justification that George and Nicholas provided was just that things are fluid and things change. But I thought that it was a bit odd that they changed the rating from concerned to opposed without, especially after we'd had an energy committee meeting where we'd gone through that bill just literally 48 hours before time. So, you know, I don't know that this actually matters for this legislative session. And I've been trying to think about how to productively move forward and what we could do. But, you know, my thought was it might not help with this legislative session, but I would be interested in drafting a letter from our commission that says basically just what I've said, that we share their concerns about grid resiliency and resource adequacy, but that to meet our carbon targets, we believe that electrification is necessary, and that we would like to see Waputa engage in more efforts around demand response and load shaping electrification. And, you know, maybe that will help a little bit in the next legislative session. You know, I'm trying to learn more about how Waputa forms their stances on items. And I think that we all have a lot to learn about electrification. But it's something that is of interest to me. And, you know, I talked to Steve a little bit about it and thought I would be happy to take a crack at writing a letter like that and get some input from Chris Heimgartner and even Brian Walters, if that's something that my fellow commissioners would consider signing as well. And we can, of course, continue the conversation about it after anything is in writing.
Christine?
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate both of you and Altool and your knowledge. You know, we all come with different backgrounds, and the two of you, or especially, you know, have a different understanding of all this. Over my years of experience, I know it's important to be united, because if I used to go down lobby and I found out going down by myself didn't benefit anybody. We got to stay in a group. So I've learned to accept, you know, the leadership of the Waputa and us being a part of that decision and making that move. So I support your letter, but I'd like to know more about it. Maybe Altool understands it, but I'm not 100%. I heard what you said, so it made sense. But is there any way, I don't know, Steve, John, is there any way that Christine can share with us, you know, in writing, that I could get an email so I could read more and understand better what you're saying, Christine? So that way, if I have to put my name on a letter, I really fully understand it.
Yeah, I mean, are your questions about the benefits of electrification?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I mean, and I'm happy to write some of that, to document that in a letter that would go to Waputa. And, you know, I think that the sort of basic gist of it is that electric appliances convert energy to heat or forward motion more efficiently than combustion appliances, because it doesn't have the heat waste that you get with those combustion appliances. And the only way that we can decarbonize buildings or transportation, you know, effectively is I believe with electrification. And I think there's a wide body of experts that would agree with that too, because we can electrify everything and clean up the grid is kind of the simple math for how we reduce carbon emissions at a economy-wide scale. And our building sector is a huge source of emissions. So heating water, heating space, and cooking. And my big thing that I'm sort of obsessed with is like electric water heaters. Those are a great, it's like a hidden battery. You can heat water during off-peak times in really insulated water storage tanks. And that is an effective kind of hidden battery. And it's something I worked with rural electric cooperatives on in very conservative places. And I'm just scratching my head as to why WAPUTA is not interested in more of those kinds of opportunities that provide economic benefits, environmental benefits, and human health benefits, because we're learning a lot more about the dangers to human health by having combustion appliances in our homes, particularly with young kids. So I'm happy to put all that in a letter. And I agree, I do not want to create a rift at WAPUTA. I think I want to encourage discussion and education about these things, because I think it's common sense. And I think that I love that WAPUTA has so many different viewpoints and political stripes. And I think that this is something that we could really all get behind in a practical, there's some just really practical benefits to it. So I think, I could put a draft letter together that would capture some of what I've just said, and would, I think, putting that in our future agenda packet so the public can see it would be John, step in if it's not appropriate, but I think that would be an appropriate next step. And if I'd love to get to a place where all three of us are comfortable putting our name on something that relates to these issues.
Go back to Mike's question, is that you can distribute information to the commissioners. It is the reply that becomes a meeting. So you can distribute the information. You might include the bills we're addressing in the information, so the commissioners see the bills. And then if there's any educational pieces, those can be included as well. And as far as signing a letter in support or opposition or comment on pending legislation to the legislature, you can do that. And certainly any letters you want to write to WAPUTA, you can do. I had a four-legged visitor, I'm sorry.
I was wondering about that.
The door
yeah,
open.
my thought at this point is that it would just be for WAPUTA. I think it's actually water under the bridge at this point for the bills that we're at, and WAPUTA has said that they're not going to testify on those bills anymore. Yeah, I want, it would be to WAPUTA, not to anyone not to the legislature.
Just a thought too, is that I think that with Chris coming on, his experience, especially at PUD, Snohomish PUD, I think that he would be very helpful in drafting that position paper or letter, whatever, however you want to put it out there. And that I think that as time goes on fairly quickly here, that relationship between WAPUTA and this PUD can be strengthened with Christine and with all three of you commissioners, but with Chris coming on, I think that he's going to be very, very helpful in that way.
So with my involvement with in the past Energy Committee, I've noticed similar and had similar concerns relating to the issues that you raised, Commissioner Grant, meaning seeing concerned in the discussion and then seeing opposed when it came to testify. And all I can guess about that is that things are moving quickly. There's perhaps horse trading going on. And that can have an impact at the last minute about how folks who represent us act in that last minute. The approach that I've taken on this issue of energy has been to go back to fundamentals and ask that the Energy Committee and WPUDA shift their focus from resource availability to reliability. And the reason is because reliability is inclusive of supply, but it's also inclusive of things like distribution. And it's also inclusive of things like storage and demand response. And I've gotten good support from Jeff Randall, who's the chair of the Energy Committee, and also Nicholas Garcia. And although there is increasing support for the use of the word reliability, I still see falling back to a crutch of comparing Washington State to Texas and comparing Washington State to California, which are not adequate, not really helpful comparisons. Certainly, they are comparisons from the perspective that if we make bad decisions, we will have bad outcomes. But unfortunately, the analogy doesn't go that much further. Meaning their grids are so structurally different than our grid in the Northwest, or in Washington State in particular. And anyway, if we're going to do analogies, the way to do the analogy is not by discussing resource availability, it's by discussing reliability. And so that's the approach that I've taken. And I certainly support the idea, this initiative that you wanted to take, Commissioner Grant, to ask for an emphasis on demand response and electrification. I also recognize there's a lot of details around building electrification that can create unintended consequences with building retrofits in particular. New buildings are a no-brainer because why? Because now the technology for heat pumps makes sense in residential, and they make even more sense in a building because of the extreme efficiency improvement of heat pumps. And so you can do a ground source in a building much easier. That always has to have a foundation. In putting ground source heat pump type of infrastructure is almost always feasible. So, I think that there is some work to be done on the building electrification bills. Is looking carefully at unintended consequences, but the way to address that would be to engage rather than to disengage and oppose. Those are my thoughts on the subject.
Okay, great. Well, it sounds like there would be some interest in looking at a draft letter related to this topic of electrification and demand response and reliability and how they all interact. And so I can take a crack over the next few weeks, and I think getting input from Chris would be wonderful too. Like I said, I don't think this is going to make an impact in this legislative session, but I would love for it to make an impact on WPUDA and how we might go forward, even with educational events and things like that going forward. So yeah, Commissioner Deshmani.
I might as well bring it up now. One thing I forgot to mention is that there's a solar incentive bill. The enthusiastic, proactive thing that I think you may be looking for, Commissioner Grant, I don't want to put words in your mouth. A great thing that WPUDA could have done is right at the beginning, it said, hey, let's add energy storage to that solar incentive bill. But some kind of proactive enthusiasm is something that maybe we're too reticent to do, because the solar incentive bill is, could be very well also be an incentive for at least pilot energy storage incentive throughout the state of Washington that we definitely could use. We need to get more early adopters for energy storage systems, certainly before it can grow too much. So.
Okay. Okay, well, I'd say in the next, probably not the next commission meeting, but the following one, I will try to get some words on paper that we can all react to, and then share feedback in a commission meeting and in a public open meeting, and we'll see what we land on. But I wanted to at least bring it up because I think all of us speaking as one unified voice will be more powerful than me just having an individual conversation with George. So really appreciate the conversation, and it sounds like we're okay. We're not going to come out in support or opposition of any specific bills with this short legislative session. So unless there's any further discussion, we can move on to the next agenda item. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised, so we'll move on to the next item, which is the general manager report.
I just, nothing specific other than just a couple updates. We are completing work on the replacement of material and any changes that we needed to make at plant 2 and plant 1 at our because of the flooding damage, and that's been going quite well. I'll have a final report to Chris and to you at our next commission meeting, as hopefully have completed that work. And then we are working on, I mentioned before briefly last meeting, but we are developing a water workshop, our second meeting in March. And we'd hoped to do it the first meeting, but a couple of people that we wanted to have contribute on that had a conflict on the schedule. So I'll be working with Chris and Rebecca and Becky Peterson to develop that water workshop. And I think we can accomplish it at the regular meeting, but between now and about 10 days from now, we'll have a much better feeling as to whether or not we can do that, or we need more additional time. So looking forward to that. I think timing is good. There are a lot of things happening with adjudication, with watershed management board projects, and some of the things that are happening with farmers on grant applications. So we want to try to put together a full picture of where we're involved, what we're doing, and give some sense of where we may be headed in the next year and a half to 2 years here. So.
So thank you. So Steve, could we bring up Henry's letter and his grant application?
Yes, in fact, got it right here. I asked Henry for a template. Henry and the Ag Water Board are applying for one of their stream restoration grants this session. I shouldn't say this session, this grant round. And I think that there's something like 15 different locations where they are applying for these funds to convert groundwater to surface water to groundwater. And they're reaching out to get letters of support. And so I talked to Henry yesterday. He sent me a draft letter. So I didn't think it was necessary to provide, or ask you for permission to provide that letter of support, but I'd certainly welcome that. And it's essentially just sent to the Department of Ecology and the grant application program to help fund, to get support to fund that application. I do not know the dollar amount. but it's going to be critical. Henry and the Ag Water Board have been working on a couple of small pilot projects over the last, I don't know, 4 to 5 years, using groundwater wells to extract water out of the groundwater, out of the ground, and put it into nearby streams to enhance stream flow. And so they have identified 15 different locations now that would be funded under this grant.
So let me understand, these 15 locations would be where they would be taking well water or groundwater and providing it directly to the end user, or taking the groundwater and use it for in-stream augmentation
The latter, stream flow augmentation.
during low flow.
Yes, it's all based upon what their expectations are in terms of timing. When the flow in the river or the stream is low and needs to be enhanced, can they use the wells to pump water out of the ground to enhance that stream flow? And that may be effective based upon the timing of flow in the ground, water in the ground, and versus groundwater flow in the streams. Those same streams would have been identified as areas where the farmers have legal water rights to take water out of those streams. And so the timing may be the same, but they're expecting that the timing of the flow in the ground is going to be such that they can take water out of the ground and enhance that stream flow. It's critical in some areas because these, even though they may have legal ground or legal stream water rights to take water out of the stream, they're not able to do that because of the low flow. And so they can enhance that stream flow and still use those ground or those surface water rights. So they've done a couple of these pilots and it's been proven to be quite successful. And so they're going after one of the stream restoration grants to try to conduct, I think, up to 15 of these different locations.
Are you aware of any opposition to these projects?
I'm not. And I mean, the Ag Water Board has been very open about the process. So that doesn't mean that they may receive some objection, but I really sort of doubt it.
Okay. Well, and I just wanted to, before we pass a letter of support, I just want to make sure we factored in if there was any opposition to the idea. Obviously, the substitution of surface water or augmentation of surface water by groundwater is a part and parcel to some of the solutions that we need to pursue, because the groundwater effectively then turns into a storage system.
Exactly.
The well turns into a storage system.
Right.
So it's attractive from that perspective. So I'm in favor of the letter. I don't know if you need anything from the commission.
I mean, unless the commission would object to supporting the application, no, I don't need anything.
Commissioner Murphy, do you have any questions?
Wrong one, sorry. Steve, I'm curious, I've been hearing a lot of that some of the cities and others are digging deep wells right now in the county, looking for that water, along with now the ag boards requesting to do some wells. Is that what you're hearing?
Well, I'm not aware, I've heard, and that's all I can say, is that I've heard about a week ago that Ferndale is looking at drilling another well in that same area where they drilled these last two, which is just south and west of what I would say is Main Street, extended out in that area. But Birch Bay Water and Sewer District and City of Blaine have drilled 3 wells up north and west of us. And they are continuing to go through a process of trying to get permits, water right permits from Department of Ecology. That's all I'm aware of in terms of municipalities. Now, that's totally different than what the Ag Water Board is doing. These would be, in most cases, are probably existing wells that the Ag Water Board would be using, and then, but getting permission to use them to augment stream flow. And you'd actually get a water right assigned to that process. Now, I'm not aware of any other ones. There may be, but I'm not aware of any. Now, the city of Linden is working on this aquifer recharge project up in the North Fork. But that's totally different. That's pumping groundwater and surface water, actually. And I should say, I said groundwater, but it's pumping water out of the stream on exceedance flows, pumping it back up and recharging the aquifer. That project is a long ways off. They did get substantial funding to do the investigative and first round of work on that project. I'm not aware of any other ones, so.
Okay, I'm aware of a few others, but it just seems to be so much going on right now. And the requests for deep wells right now, I think a lot of it is concern for the future as, can you get a water right? Can you drill a well? Or do we even have the people to drill in the future in Whatcom County? It seems to be a question that needs to be addressed for the future. So I just was asking, I was curious.
No, the wells at Birch Bay and Blaine drilled, those were successful in getting below the Abbotsford aquifer and going down into a lower aquifer where they proved by the drilling and testing of the water not being impacted by surface water runoff and impact that way. So they were successful in that way. I don't know if the well that we've heard that City of Ferndale is considering drilling, if that's supposed to go down, deep, or it's going to be in the same range, that 150 to 200 feet that that they've drilled these last couple of wells. I don't know that.
I heard deep, but yeah.
The other is that we have had 3 requests so far, and we're working with those farmers or families, I should say, south and west of the city of Ferndale that are on small 2 to 3 members of their own little water associations, where their wells, even with the runoff the last couple of years, their wells are dry. And they've asked us to consider using our irrigation connections in that area to supply them with water. They would then put into their homes the individual treatment facilities that our state and Whatcom County Health Department would approve. So we're aware of that. I expect that unless we see a significant change in our weather and climate over the next 3 to 4 years, that we're going to see more and more of those requests.
Thank you. That was it. Thank you, Christine.
I have one question about the Ag Water Board application to the Department of Ecology. You mentioned that this strategy of using well water to augment stream flow during low flow periods of low flow, there's been some successful pilots, and I just was curious where those pilots were and
I'm aware.
they were.
I'm aware of one for sure is in the Bertrand Creek area. And that is probably now about 3 years old. The other one, I believe, I'm not 100% sure, I believe is in Anderson Creek, which is east of the city of Linden in that area.
Okay.
Those are the two that I'm aware of.
Okay. Okay. And are they going to be, well, so we're looking, they need a letter of support from the organization for their Department of Ecology grant.
Yes.
Okay. And will there be more review of whether this, is there like a third party that's kind of evaluating whether this is successful, or how are they evaluating whether these projects provide, habitat benefits or not?
The application and the grants that go through this stream restoration program, which is, I just referred to as 6091, which was the legislation that approved the water restoration grant program, which was the outcome of the Hearst case. That once you get approved for the grant, then you go through a whole series of scope of work, who's going to do the work, monitoring, and testing, and results submittal, and that's all governed through a 2 to 3 year program that goes along with the grant. So
through the Department of Ecology.
yes.
Got it. Okay. Okay. That's helpful. Okay.
So if there's no objections, I'll send that letter of support.
Yeah, I have no objections.
Neither do I.
Okay,
Anything else from you, Steve?
that's all I had.
Okay, so moving on to commissioner reports. Commissioner Deshmani, would you like to start?
Sure. I'll talk about the WPUD meetings from last week, not the week before last. I attended the board of directors meeting on Mike Murphy's behalf, Commissioner Murphy's behalf. And I attended the water committee meeting. And so regarding the water committee meeting, there was a presentation on legislative items, and the drought related items were covered. There was some opportunity for roundtable discussion, but pretty limited. And they're planning the next quarterly water committee meeting, which I believe is coming up in March. Steve, were you attending the water committee meeting too?
I did not. I'm sorry. I was unable to attend this last one, but I will be, unless Chris decides otherwise, I'll be attending one. So
the board of directors meeting was very much focused on a summary of the legislative actions that are happening. I did inquire and ask about what the status of Energy Northwest various projects are, and they're planning to, Energy Northwest is planning to update WPUD on the status of the research and development projects on the advanced nuclear technologies sometime in February. I know Commissioner Murphy might get more details at Energy Northwest. There was a item where which George Kahn brought forward a policy positions paper, and in that paper there was a bullet that I found difficult to endorse. So I was the sole dissenting voter on that. Sorry to get us in trouble. But the reason was because the bullet was, I'll read it to you. I think you guys would understand why I wasn't comfortable with it. It was that the Snake River dams are critical to the economic well-being of the state of Washington. And I think that's a pretty superlative statement. Certainly one can argue on both sides of the subject. I in no way want to impose my perspectives on any other commissioner, certainly even in this commission or any commission across the state. But in practical terms, the Grand Coulee Dam and the Chief Joseph Dam produce 2 orders of magnitude greater energy, have 2 orders of magnitude greater economic impact than the Snake River dams do. And then to say that something that's 100 times smaller is essential. And we have a lot that's essential to the state. And so my concern is that when we make superlative statements, we actually undermine our ability to communicate. I was going to use harsher words, and I'm glad I thought about my words. We undermine our own ability to communicate in the public forum, and these are talking points that are supposed to go to our federal delegation. So when Senator Murray, Senator Cantwell see things that maybe are extreme coming from Wapouta, we undermine our ability to be effective when it's time to be effective. So I had a chance to follow up with George about that. And he understood me. So it looks like George is talking to Whatcom PUD quite a bit in the last couple of weeks. Anyway, so I'm glad for that, and that's my report on Wapouta meetings. I intend to, and I'd like to get the commission's approval. There's a PPC meeting this Thursday, as well as on Thursday, a meeting for regarding adjudication that Steve sent to the commissioners. I'm planning to attend both. That's on Thursday. I'd like to submit that as a per diem day. And then the other thing is I'm planning to have a meeting with the county executive, South Paul Sidhu, the first week of February. I think it's going to be the 3rd or the 4th, but it hasn't been finalized yet. And in that meeting, I want to discuss where we're at on water issues, particularly the role of Cascadia Consulting Group, and the focus on technical and policy objectives with that group. And that's the group that the county executive, the county has hired to help advance discussions regarding adjudication, but driven by adjudication, which is basically how to get the work done as quickly as possible, and not waiting for the legal process to produce all the fruit. Having concurrently with that fruitful discussions on how to find mutually beneficial to the various parties involved on whatever portion of the watershed we're talking about, agreements that can be put in place sooner rather than later, because that's beneficial to everybody. The quicker we can start making changes to conserve and manage our water. So I'm planning to continue that discussion with the county executive. Obviously, he was very busy and with floods, and of course, COVID has also been putting a lot of demands, lots of emergency management stuff, basically. So I'm hopeful that we can get the ball rolling on that front. And Steve, I'd like to include you on that too, that meeting.
I'll be here, be available.
Great. So those are the 2 requests I have to the commission.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Deshmani. That all sounds great. Commissioner Murphy, do you want to do your update next?
Yes, thank you. Of course, you're aware, we talked about earlier, I did attend the Wapouta legislature. I appreciate all 2 of you taking in and covering for me on these meetings with Wapouta, so thank you for doing that. More or less what I'd like to do, and here's what I'm trying, I can't tell you how excited I am that,
Oh, by the way, sorry to interrupt you, Commissioner Murphy.
no, go ahead.
When I voted against that bullet item, I made sure I let them know that I'm the alternate. And I was
Okay.
Commissioner Murphy, just to make sure I didn't get you in trouble too.
All right, thanks for covering that, Altuo. I want to say how excited I am, not that Steve is stepping down from general manager, but in the past, when Steve and I talked, we always had to talk about 10 or 12 different items. And there was a lot to discuss. I'm so excited to work with Steve in the future to only focus on one thing, water. And there's a lot going on in water in Whatcom County. So to help me to know more what's going on, to run it by both of you commissioners, is I'd like to meet with, Dave Olson. I'd like to go see Henry and discuss ag water, what the farmers are doing. I'd like to talk to a few farmers, talk to a few cities about their water, trying to get a real idea, and then eventually talk to Steve too, and then talk to Chris. I hope, would you support that if I just kind of follow up on the water issues like that? Because I see great things happening for us with Steve moving into a place where he can focus just on water. He's so good at it. So looking forward to it, Steve, but that's my report. Thank you.
Are you saying that we distract Steve with other matters?
I can't imagine what it'd be like to be a general manager of a PUD, but sometimes you felt like your questions almost had to stand in line, not because Steve was ignoring me, it's he had just bigger fish to fry, so to speak. So I'm excited about only having one thing. Steve, we're just going to talk water.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you. That was my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Murphy. And yeah, so just to cover what I was up to, also did the WAPUTA meetings. Mike, I covered for you during the government affairs meeting. I cannot say you missed a whole lot. Discussion of how the Washington State Capitol building dome is maintained. It was all over the place. But not a whole, it was mostly just an update from Senator Sheldon, who is not going to be running for re-election, and kind of his goodbye to WAPUTA. I kind of already went into energy. I agree with Commissioner Deshmani. One of the other things that came up in the Energy Committee was that the WAPUTA is coming out as opposed to a bill that would provide $350,000 to analyze removing the Snake River dams. And so again, this would just be an analysis around it. And that I think came from the governor's, from the governor's office. So, again, I wonder if I think it's clear that our commission has some different thoughts on where some of these policy positions that WAPUTA is coming out on. I would be interested in continuing to have some discussions with WAPUTA about how they come out in support or opposition to these items. Telecom, we had a good discussion about the appeals process, or the challenge process, I think it's called, with grant applications, and that there is not transparency around how the challenges are done. And so I am really grateful, because WAPUTA is going to be pushing harder to have more transparency around how those challenges are done. And there's quite a few PUDs that have struggled with this. So happy about that, and was glad that Andrew joined, so he can be a part of those discussions too. And we had another broadband steering committee meeting. Obviously, there's a lot in play in terms of executing on those grants and then continuing to apply for more grant funding. And a lot of work to do in the coming year. And so eager for Chris to join to help that. You know, I kind of shared some of the other things I've already been thinking about in terms of the legislative updates. And I'd say the only other thing is that I did speak to a reporter from the Cascadia Daily, which is a new news outlet that just was live, I think, as of yesterday. And their local government reporter is interested in writing a story about Chris Heimgartner joining the PUD and kind of the transition, that, you know, some of the key new strategic initiatives that we're working on. So I talked with him. I connected him with Andrew Etcherkin because he's interested in several of our broadband initiatives, and said I would get him connected with Chris few days after he started. Thought it wouldn't be nice to have him talk to a reporter on his first day on the job, but I just think it's really important that we keep trying to find ways to engage with the public and update the public on what we're doing, because not everyone comes to our meetings, and I don't expect them to, but you know, just trying to look for more ways to engage. So the reporter's name is Ralph Schwartz, and I'm sure he'll reach out to other commissioners as needed for the research for his article, but wanted to share that. And I think that that's exciting to hopefully get some good press about what we've been up to over the last year and where we're going. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Christine, for sitting in on that meeting and sparing me that meeting, it sounds like, so I appreciate it. I will have to call Tim though, because I wasn't aware he was going to be stepping down, and he's been a great supporter of the PUD over the years. So I will call him and thank him personally for the time he and I worked together.
Yeah, he's decided to not run for re-election. So yeah.
He's very facilitative and nice with me as well. After becoming a new commissioner, really, he's been a great asset to the PUD community, Senator Sheldon.
Yeah, and he did do a nice job kind of going through some of his different Senate colleagues. So it wasn't that it just, there was nothing sort of urgent that came out of the meeting that you missed. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Senator Sheldon is one of those unique individuals who is also a port commissioner. I think he was a county commissioner at one time, and state senator, and a PUD commissioner at one time. So he really knows his community very, very well.
And apparently his sister is a judge too, so it's runs in the family. It's impressive. Yeah. Okay, so that's it for commissioner reports. And then the next item on our agenda is going to be public comment. So Anne, could you help facilitate?
No hands raised.
Okay, it's just, looks like,
Give it a minute here.
great. Well, then we will close public comment then. I just want to make sure there, sometimes it takes a moment for people to get their hands up, but yeah, it does not look like anybody has their hands raised. And with that, is there anything else for the good of the order today?
Just
Steve?
look forward to seeing you again next meeting. Don't just leave now, Steve. You can't not show up to the next meeting.
Oh, I'll be here. I'll be here.
It'll be too hard for some of us if you just, like you just disappear.
Yes, no, as the office knows, I am now on the dark side. So I'm in my new office. So no, I just wanted to extend I'll be around for quite some time yet, but I just want to extend a big thank you for everything this morning. Appreciate it, and appreciate your support, all of you, over the last years, and looking forward to continuing to support you. So with that.
Yeah, well, we're all envious of your granddaughter. She's gonna get a lot of this time, so.
Yeah, my wife's going to get a lot of time. She's going through some tough times with needing some surgery over the next, well, the 9th of February, the first time, and then probably a couple months later for another. It's a hip surgery, so we got to get her through that.
Cool.
Well, I did also just want to say thank you again to Anne for helping run everything this morning, and Steve will, I'll be hoping to see you in person soon. And so we did the best with our Zoom celebration. So thanks, Anne, for that. And thank you to all the members of the public that joined our meeting today. And with that, the meeting is closed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.